New Orleans grocery stores carry their own kind of noise, cans clinking, carts rolling, parents negotiating with toddlers who swear they're starving. But that afternoon, one aisle went so quiet it felt like time leaned in to listen. Wesley froze. 3 years. 3 long, heavy, silent years, and there she was, Veronica, standing between cereal boxes and a confused toddler holding a juice pouch upside down. She hadn't seen him yet. She was busy trying to calm Zyla, who was insisting the cereal had cute faces. Wesley's heartbeat thudded like it was trying to escape his chest. He took one small step forward, then stopped again, because he didn't just see Veronica. He saw them, 2 toddlers with familiar eyes, familiar expressions he had seen once in a mirror. His voice slipped out before he could stop it, barely above a whisper. 3 years. Veronica. Oh my God! Veronica's head snapped up. Their eyes met, startled, shaken, unsure. She grabbed the cart handle like it was the only thing keeping her steady. For a moment, neither moved. The world around them kept going. Kids whining, carts rolling, someone opening a freezer. But they were stuck in a moment that had been waiting 3 years to surface. Wesley blinked hard, staring at the twins again. His breath caught in his throat. His chest tightened. Everything inside him shifted. Have you ever been so sure you were right, only to learn you were completely wrong? Have you ever judged someone before hearing their side, only to realize later that the truth was nothing like you imagined? That's where Wesley stood, in that aisle, facing a truth he never prepared for. Outside the store, they faced each other again. No aisles, no distractions. Just a man, a woman, and the 2 children who carried answers he wasn't ready for. Wesley's voice trembled. Are they mine? Veronica didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't soften. Yes, Wesley. His knees weakened. He gripped the side of the shopping cart just to stay upright. The truth hit him harder than any accusation he once threw her way. Everything he thought he knew, everything he walked away from, everything he ran from. But what happens when a man who walked away must now return as a father to 2 children he never knew existed? What happens when the woman he hurt carries the truth he never allowed her to speak? Stay with this story until the end, because you'll witness the moment Veronica reveals what really happened. The CO parenting journey neither of them planned, the emotional shift that changes their lives, and the decision that leads to a final powerful twist. Before we dive deeper, do me one favor, hit like and drop a comment so YouTube shows this story to more people who might need its message. Your engagement helps this channel grow, and it keeps stories like this alive. Welcome back to Mr. Dave Stories, where every story reminds us that growth is possible, healing is real, and lessons are everywhere. If this is your first time here, we're honored to have you. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that might uplift, inspire, or change the way you see life. For a moment, Wesley couldn't speak. The truth sat in his chest like a weight he wasn't strong enough to carry yet. The parking lot around them moved as usual, people walking to cars, bags, rustling, someone whistling, but he felt removed from all of it, like he was standing behind thick glass. Zayden tugged on Veronica's shirt. Mommy, can we go home now? Zyla peeked at Wesley again, tilting her head the way kids do when they're trying to understand something big with tiny minds. He looks sad, she said quietly. Wesley's throat tightened. Veronica inhaled slowly, steady but guarded. Kids, hold Mommy's hand. Her voice didn't shake, his did. Veronica, please. I need a minute. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. She didn't snap at him. She didn't comfort him either. Instead, she looked at him with an expression he'd never seen before. Not anger, not softness, but a kind of tired truth that comes from carrying everything alone. You didn't stay long enough to know anything, she said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was simply real, the kind of real that leaves a mark. Wesley stepped forward, but she stepped back, gently, firmly. Not here, she whispered. Not like this. He nodded, understanding that there were moments you push, and moments you stand still. This was a stand-still moment. He looked at the twins again, Zayden tapping his shoe against the pavement, Zyla hugging a snack pack like it was treasure. 3 years. 3 years he missed. 3 years he never asked about. 3 years he never gave her space to explain. His chest burned with regret, the kind of regret that doesn't leave easily. Can I talk to you later? He asked carefully, his voice low. Veronica didn't answer at first. Her eyes drifted toward the twins, then back to him, measuring his sincerity. We'll talk, she said. Not today, but soon. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't acceptance. But it wasn't rejection either. It was a door, not open, not closed, just no longer locked. As Veronica guided the twins toward her car, Wesley stood rooted on the asphalt, watching them walk away. Zayden looked back once, curious. Zyla waved. Wesley felt something inside him twist painfully, a blend of guilt, wonder, and a longing he didn't even know he had permission to feel. This wasn't just a reunion. This wasn't just a shock. This was the beginning of a truth he had avoided for 3 years, a truth that would push him, shake him, break him, and maybe, just maybe, rebuild something he never realized he needed. And as the car doors shut and Veronica drove off, Wesley whispered to himself, "What have I done? If only he had listened. If only he had stayed. If only he hadn't walked away from the one moment that needed patience instead of pride." But stories like this aren't about if only. They're about what happens when truth finally catches up. And this truth? It was only getting started. Wesley stood in that parking lot long after Veronica's car disappeared from view. The weight of 3 years pressed against his chest, heavier than any contract, heavier than any boardroom decision he had ever made. He had spent his whole adult life solving problems with money, deadlines, documents, and strategy. But this wasn't a business problem. This was his life. The part he didn't know existed, the part he should have protected, the part he walked away from without listening. His mind replayed everything like a broken film. No excuse made sense now, no justification held up. The truth didn't need his permission. It had already arrived, in the form of 2 toddlers with his eyes and Veronica's strength. A slow breath left him as he pressed a hand to his forehead. For the first time in years, Wesley felt genuinely afraid, not of responsibility, not of fatherhood, not even of facing his past mistakes. He was afraid of losing the chance to fix what he broke. People walked past him, carrying bags, laughing, arguing, living life, but Wesley barely noticed. His focus was still on the moment Veronica said, "Yes, Wesley." 2 words, a truth, a wound, a beginning. He didn't know how to move forward yet. He didn't know how to earn trust from a woman who had every reason to guard her heart. He didn't know how to step into the lives of 2 children who'd already learned to live without him. But he knew one thing: running was no longer an option. He'd done enough of that already. He finally walked toward his car, slow, hesitant, as if each step carried a lesson he should have learned years ago. He paused before opening the door, glancing once more at the direction Veronica left. "I'm going to fix this," he whispered to himself. "I have to. Not for image, not for ego, not for redemption, but for the 2 small faces he couldn't get out of his head, and the woman whose heart he bruised without ever letting her speak." With a deep breath, Wesley sat inside his car, started the engine, and drove away, not from the past this time, but toward a future he knew would demand honesty, patience, and humility. This wasn't the story of a man discovering children he never knew he had. It was the story of a man confronting the version of himself he never should have been. And that journey was only beginning. Welcome back to Mr. Dave Stories, where every story reminds us that growth is possible, healing is real, and lessons are everywhere. If this is your first time here, we're honored to have you. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that might uplift, inspire, or change the way you see life. New Orleans woke up the same way it always did, with sound. Not noise, but sound. A rhythm that slipped through cracked windows, over rooftops, and across sidewalks like it owned the place. Cars humming down narrow streets, gospel music drifting from a neighbor's speaker, a rooster somebody swore they didn't have, all mixing into the heartbeat of the 9th Ward. Veronica stepped onto her small front porch with a quiet sigh that wasn't sad, just tired in a way any mother understood. The morning sun had barely lifted, yet heat was already settling on her skin like a warm blanket. She balanced a cup of coffee in one hand and leaned against the railing, taking in the familiar view of her block. Same houses, same neighbors, same morning greetings. But her life? Her life was nothing like it used to be. Through the thin screen door behind her, 2 tiny voices collided like cymbals in their own little parade. "Mommy, Sila took my crayon." "No, I didn't. He put it on my side." "You lying." "Don't say lying. Both of y'all hush," Veronica called without turning around. Instant silence. The kind of silence that meant they weren't actually done, just regrouping. She took another sip of coffee, letting the bitterness wake up the parts of her spirit that had been running on fumes for 3 years. Raising twins wasn't for the faint-hearted, but she'd learned to move through each day like a woman who refused to let life win. The screen door squeaked open. Miss Althea, the unofficial mayor of the block, waved from across the street with her morning bonnet still halfway crooked. "Morning, baby. You surviving over there?" "Barely," Veronica called back. "These 2 waking up like they got rent to pay." Miss Althea let out a laugh that echoed down the block. "Tell them to come on and pick up all the toys they keep throwing over my fence." "I'm working on it," Veronica said, smiling despite herself. A younger neighbor, Miss Kenya, popped her head out of her yard next door. "Girl, you need a break. You've been on full-time mama duty since them babies arrived." Veronica lifted her eyebrows. "And you volunteering?" Kenya shook her head real fast. "Oh, absolutely not. I like my peace," Veronica snorted. "Thought so." The Ninth Ward had a way of holding people together. It wasn't perfect, not even close, but it was one of the last places where folks still checked on each other without asking why. Behind her, the twins started arguing again. "I want the blue bowl, but I want blue. There are 2 blue bowls," Veronica snapped. Oh, she shook her head. "Lord, give me patience." Inside the house, breakfast was an event, not a meal, an event. Zayden sat at the table kicking his feet so hard the chair shook. "Mommy, can we go somewhere today? Like the store, or the park, or the store?" Zyla, seated beside him with her stuffed bunny tucked under her arm, pointed her spoon at him. "You always want to go places. Sit down. I am sitting. You wiggling, you wiggle too." "Enough," Veronica said, passing them bowls of oatmeal before chaos took over completely. Raising 3-year-olds was like living with 2 small comedians whose jokes were mostly arguments. Veronica turned on the small radio near the stove. The soft hum of brass music filled the kitchen, the kind of tune that felt like home. The twins immediately started wiggling in their chairs. "Finish your food first," she warned. They paused mid-wiggle, just mid-wiggle, not actually stopping. While wiping oatmeal from Zayden's cheek, Veronica let her eyes travel around the room. The cabinets she painted herself. The pictures taped to the fridge. The scribbles the twins proudly called art. It wasn't a big house. It wasn't fancy. But it was theirs. She had built this life. She had kept it standing. She had healed in this space, at least as much as a woman could heal while never fully closing a door she didn't choose to shut. People looked at Veronica and saw strength. They saw a woman who carried responsibility with her head held high. What they didn't see were the nights she sat on the edge of her bed wondering whether she should have fought harder, whether she should have explained herself longer, whether Wesley ever thought about her, or worse, whether he didn't. But those thoughts stayed locked behind her ribs. She didn't have time to dwell on what might have been. She had bills that didn't care if her heart hurt. So she moved forward, step by step, day by day. 3 years had passed since Wesley walked away. Enough time for wounds to toughen but not disappear. Enough time for hope to shrink but not die. She didn't hate him, but she didn't trust him either. Not after what he assumed, not after what he accused her of, not after how quickly he shut her out. And yet, when she saw him yesterday in that grocery store aisle, something in her chest had jolted. She told herself it was shock, maybe fear, definitely anger. But the truth she refused to touch, it wasn't just anger. She shook the thought away. Today was not about Wesley. Today was about survival, getting 2 tiny humans dressed, fed, and out the door without losing her mind. Once breakfast was over, Veronica wrangled the twins into clothes. Zayden insisted on wearing 2 different socks because they fighting. Zyla chose a bright yellow dress and then demanded her bunny wear a bow. If motherhood had a training manual, Veronica never received her copy. She pushed open the front door and stepped outside, each child clutching one of her hands. Immediately, the neighborhood aunties across the street started waving. "There go my babies," Miss Althea hollered. Zyla waved back like she was running for office. Zayden shouted, "Miss Althea, Mommy said you owe her $5. Veronica gasped, "Boy." Miss Althea laughed so hard she slapped her thigh. "Bring him over here. He's telling the truth now." "He is absolutely not," Veronica muttered, picking him up before he said anything else outrageous. Beside her, Kenya shook her head knowingly. "Kids don't lie. They just talk too much." Veronica rolled her eyes. "Please come borrow them for the day. You got snacks? No, then no." The women laughed, filling the street with warmth that wrapped around Veronica's tired spirit. As the twins ran down the sidewalk chasing each other, Veronica leaned against her porch railing again. She watched them for a moment, their joy, their energy, their innocence. They were her world. They were her reason for getting back up every morning. They were the proof that she survived something that could have broken her. But with joy came a quiet ache. The ache of unanswered questions, the ache of a truth never spoken, the ache of the moment she didn't get to explain. She took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and let the ache settle. It was part of her now. Not loud, not sharp, but present, just like the memory of the man who ran from her without hearing a single explanation. As Veronica watched the twins play, she whispered, "Some stories don't go the way we plan, but they still teach us something. If you're here listening to her journey unfold, do me a small favor, hit that like button and drop a comment so more people can discover stories that remind us of strength, second chances, and the lessons life doesn't warn us about. Your support truly helps this channel grow." Veronica finally pulled the twins close, ready to start their day. She had no idea that the man she thought was gone forever, the man who had broken her heart with a single misunderstanding, the man who had just seen his children for the first time, was about to re-enter her world in ways she could never prepare for. But for now, life moved with the rhythm of New Orleans, steady, loud, loving, and unpredictable, and Veronica was just trying to keep up. Before assumptions shattered something beautiful, there was a ballroom. A half-renovated New Orleans ballroom with scaffolding still up, loose wires hanging from the ceiling, and the lingering smell of fresh paint mixing with old wood. Veronica remembered that day far too well, not because anything dramatic happened immediately, but because something shifted in her life the moment Wesley stepped into that space. She'd been hired by a small black-owned event design company, part-time but steady, helping set up for weddings, charity galas, anniversary dinners, anything that needed beauty and a little New Orleans flair. That morning she was kneeling beside a row of lanterns, adjusting flickering candles and checking if the lighting made sense for the evening. Her co-worker, Tasha, called out, "Girl, you see the man who just walked in? He looked like he took a wrong turn from a magazine cover." Veronica didn't bother looking up. "Tasha, every week you say somebody looked like they walked out a magazine." "No, this one different," Tasha insisted. "He looked like you don't even know he fine. That's the dangerous kind." Veronica rolled her eyes and kept working. "Let me finish this row before you start pushing me into trouble." But trouble was already walking in her direction. When she finally did look up, she saw him standing alone near the center of the ballroom, tall, fair-skinned, wearing a crisp shirt, slacks, and an expression that said he wasn't sure if he was supposed to touch anything. He held a folder under his arm, glancing around like he was trying to understand how a bright, lively New Orleans space connected with his own corporate world. It was Wesley, but she didn't know that yet. He had the posture of a man accustomed to order and the eyes of someone who just stepped into an entirely different universe. Veronica stood, dusting glitter off her legs. She approached him with the kind of confidence she earned over years of working around wealthy clients who didn't know how to match tablecloths with floral arrangements. "You look lost," she said. He blinked, startled for a moment. "Is it that obvious?" "Very," she nodded with exaggerated seriousness. "You look like you're trying to figure out if this building has Wi-Fi or ghosts." He laughed. Honestly, unexpectedly, and Veronica tilted her head, studying him. "Ghosts," he said, "I can handle. Wi-Fi issues? That's where my problems begin." I can tell," she teased. "You're giving spreadsheet energy." He smiled gently. "I'll pretend that's a compliment. Depends on the day," she said before offering her hand. "I'm Veronica, event designer." "Wesley," he replied, shaking her hand like he wasn't used to shaking hands outside conference rooms. That handshake was brief, warm, and oddly grounding. Two worlds touching in a place meant for celebration. "So what brings you here?" Veronica asked. Wesley lifted the folder slightly. "I'm overseeing a real estate project. This hotel is part of our upcoming restoration plan. I'm supposed to take notes on the space, but..." He glanced at the decorations. "I didn't expect all this." "That's because you walked into wedding prep hour," she said. "We're getting it ready for tomorrow." His eyes swept over the string lights, the candles, the rehearsal musicians tuning brass instruments near the stage. "It's beautiful already," he said. "Even unfinished." Veronica raised a brow. "You know how to compliment a room." "I know how to recognize effort," he replied. She didn't expect that answer, or the softness in his tone. Behind her, Tasha pretended to look busy while not so subtly observing everything. "So Wesley," Veronica continued, "what exactly are you doing walking around alone? Most folks from big companies show up with at least 3 people holding clipboards." He chuckled. "I prefer seeing things without distractions. People talk too much. You should hear how much folks talk at weddings," she said. "If you stay long enough, you'll learn someone always brings drama." "Sounds like good research," he said. "For what?" "For understanding people," he said simply. She didn't say it out loud, but she liked his answer. They moved around the room as she explained lighting plans and decor placements. Wesley listened, really listened, in a way that surprised her. She was used to clients who nodded politely but didn't care. He asked thoughtful questions, made small observations, and actually seemed interested in the culture behind the designs. "This pattern," he said, touching a piece of fabric. "What's the significance?" Veronica smiled. "It's a nod to local traditions. People here like their celebrations bold. Color means joy. It means memory." "Joy," he repeated softly, as if testing the word. She noticed the reflection of string lights in his eyes. There was something thoughtful in the way he looked at the room, like he wanted to understand rather than judge. Noticing the musicians warming up, he asked, "Is this your usual environment?" "Pretty much," she said. "Weddings, birthdays, community events, anything that lets people forget their problems for a few hours." "That sounds refreshing," he said. She laughed. "Trust me, it's work. You'd be surprised how many brides break down over the wrong shade of blue." "That sounds less refreshing." "You got that right." Their conversation was light but surprisingly natural. For someone so structured, Wesley adapted to her humor easily. She didn't feel like she had to hold back her personality, and that alone felt rare. After a moment, he cleared his throat. "Veronica, would you mind showing me the outdoor courtyard as well? I'd like to see how it connects to the ballroom." "Sure," she said. "Follow me." Tasha wiggled her eyebrows as Veronica passed her. Veronica mouthed, "Don't start." The courtyard was bright with soft sunlight filtering through the trees. Chairs were stacked neatly, floral pieces waiting to be arranged, and a fountain dripped gentle, steady water into a stone basin. Wesley stepped into the space slowly, taking everything in. "This feels different," he said. "How so?" Veronica smiled. "Good events need a rhythm. Fast, slow, fast again. Otherwise people get overwhelmed." "That sounds like life," he murmured. His eyes met hers, and suddenly neither of them moved. It wasn't romantic yet, just awareness, a quiet acknowledgement of something unspoken. Veronica broke the moment with a small laugh. "You think deep for a man dealing with building permits? I've learned that great design isn't only physical, it has emotional influence, too." "That might be the nicest thing a real estate developer has ever said," she teased. "I'll take that as a win," he replied. When their walkthrough was done, Wesley hesitated before leaving. "Veronica?" he asked, his voice careful. "Yes? I'm new to the city, and I'm trying this thing where I don't just work until midnight every day." He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "Would you consider having dinner with me?" He was just honest in a way that disarmed her. "You want to take me out, like a real date?" she asked. "If you'll let me," he said. She crossed her arms playfully. "You sure you can handle someone from the Ninth Ward?" "I'd like to try," he answered. The way he said it, simple, warm, earnest, made her chest flutter. "All right," she said. "Pick a place that won't put me to sleep and I might show up." "I'll work on that," he said. He walked off with a small smile tugging at his lips. She waited until he was out of sight before whispering, "Lord, don't let this man be trouble." But the truth? He already was. Wesley chose a French restaurant near the river, linen tablecloths, quiet music, waiters with perfect posture. Veronica worried she didn't belong, but the moment she arrived, the way he looked at her made the room fade. "You look amazing," he said softly. "You clean up nice too," she admitted. Their conversation was full of laughter, him trying gumbo for the first time and nearly crying, her teasing him for ordering sparkling water like it was a personality trait. After dessert, they walked along the riverfront. Lights shimmered on the water, and the warm wind brushed against their skin. Then, gently, Wesley reached for her hand. Not demanding, not assuming, just asking. Veronica didn't pull away, and that simple, quiet connection. It was the beginning of everything they didn't know would matter so deeply. Their connection didn't explode all at once. It grew, steady and warm, like a soft light filling a room. For weeks, Veronica and Wesley moved through New Orleans together in a rhythm that felt almost unreal. They learned each other's habits, their humor, their fears. They built something quiet but strong, something neither expected. But love, even when it blooms in the right hands, can stumble in the wrong moment. And that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon. The charity event at the hotel was days away, and Veronica spent most of that week running between the ballroom, the courtyard, and the supply room. She carried floral props, tested centerpieces, directed volunteers, and tried to keep her team from melting down. It was chaos, but good chaos, the kind that made her feel alive. One of the photographers, Dorian, kept texting her about props she needed to bring for lighting tests. He was friendly, talkative, sometimes too talkative, but harmless. He sent her sample shots to confirm colors. He messaged reminders like any event professional would. None of it meant anything. None of it held emotion. But the way it looked to someone who didn't understand the context, that was a different story. Wesley didn't show up to the venue that day. He had meetings across town, long ones that drained him. He'd been distant since morning, responding to Veronica's texts slowly, if at all. She figured he was buried in work. She didn't take it personally. By evening, she decided to surprise him. She bought fresh beignets, still warm, powdered sugar falling everywhere. She grabbed his favorite coffee from a shop he'd grown attached to. She imagined his tired smile when he opened the door to see her. She didn't know she was walking straight into a moment that would rewrite their lives. Veronica reached his hotel room, balancing the food bags. She knocked lightly. No answer. She knocked again. The door opened sharply, fast, abrupt, and Wesley stood there, chest rising and falling as if he'd been pacing. His face carried something she hadn't seen before, coldness wrapped around hurt. "Wesley?" she asked, confused. He stepped back, letting her inside but not welcoming her, not fully. She placed the food on the small table and turned to him. "You okay?" He picked up his phone and held it out to her, jaw tight. Explain this. The screen showed messages from Dorian. Props, sample shots, reminders, a message that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight." Anyone experienced with event setups would recognize it instantly as work-related, but Wesley wasn't experienced, and he wasn't thinking clearly. Veronica frowned. "Wesley, this is from the photographer I told you about." "I don't care what you told me," he snapped. Her eyes widened. He had never raised his voice at her before. "You think I'm stupid?" he continued. "You think I don't see what's going on? He sends you pictures? He messages you like that? You didn't tell me you were meeting him tonight." She shook her head. "Because I wasn't meeting him in the way you're thinking. We're finishing the lighting tests. That's it." He laughed, a short, wounded sound. "You really expect me to believe that?" "Yes," she said, stepping closer. "Because it's the truth." He stepped back as if her proximity hurt. "Wesley, listen to me, please." "No," he said, voice tight. "I saw enough." Her heart dropped. "You didn't even ask. What would have changed?" he whispered, a mix of frustration and heartbreak. "I thought you were different. I thought we were—" He stopped himself. "It doesn't matter. It does matter," she insisted. "You're jumping to conclusions without giving me a chance to explain." He shook his head slowly. "I can't do this, Veronica." Her chest tightened. "You don't mean that." But he did. His silence told her everything. He believed the worst of her without hesitation. He assumed betrayal without listening. He shut the door on the truth before she even spoke it. She reached for his hand. He pulled his away. The warmth that once settled between them dissolved into something icy and final. "I'm done," he said quietly. The words sliced through her like a blade. That was the first moment she felt something break. Not loud, not explosive, just a quiet snap in a place she once protected. She stared at him, stunned. "You're really ending this without hearing me out?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everything inside his expression was already walking away from her. She stood there for one last moment, waiting for him to take it back, waiting for him to breathe and realize he made a mistake. But Wesley turned toward the door, and that was her answer. Veronica walked out of the hotel room feeling hollow. She left the beignets behind, their sweetness untouched. She left the coffee on the counter, still warm. She left the explanation she never got to finish. Outside, rain clouds gathered like the city felt her pain. Lightning cracked in the distance. She stood under the small hotel awning, arms wrapped around herself, trying not to fall apart in public. Inside the hotel, Wesley packed quickly. He requested an early checkout. He didn't attend the event. He didn't message her. He boarded a late-night flight out of New Orleans. No closure, no goodbye, no space for truth, just distance, cold and final. Veronica didn't chase him. She wanted to. Her heart screamed for her to. But a woman can only drag her truth so far toward someone who refuses to listen. She walked home, each step heavier than the last. By the time she reached her porch, she wasn't angry. She was numb. 2 weeks passed, 2 quiet, heavy weeks where she carried grief like a silent companion. One morning, while preparing for another event, she realized she was late. Not a little late, very late. Her breath caught, her hands trembled. She left work early, went to a nearby store, bought a test, then another, then one more because denial made her thorough. At home, she paced until she couldn't breathe. 3 tests lay on the bathroom counter, all positive. Veronica pressed a hand to her stomach, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Oh, Lord," she whispered. "Wesley." But he wasn't there. He'd left without a backward glance. He had chosen silence over answers. She sank onto her bed, one hand covering her mouth, the other wrapped protectively around her abdomen. She cried, not because she didn't want the baby, but because she never imagined facing this moment alone. After a long while, she wiped her face and whispered to herself, "I can do this." It wasn't confidence. It was determination. The kind born from women who rise even when the world shifts beneath them. Days later, an ultrasound revealed 2 tiny heartbeats. Twins. She laughed through tears, overwhelmed and terrified. But in that same moment, she made a choice. A kind of choice only a strong mother makes. "I got you," she whispered to the growing lives inside her. "Both of you. I won't let you down." Wesley had walked away, but she would not. Veronica's pregnancy became her turning point. She built her world around those babies, not around the man who didn't stay long enough to know them. Her community rallied behind her. Every ultrasound, every baby shower, every late-night craving, she faced it with strength she never knew she had. Wesley didn't know any of it. He didn't know her glow during pregnancy. He didn't know the name she chose. He didn't know the exhaustion, the fear, the love. He didn't know her transformation into a mother, and when the twins were born, loud and full of life, Veronica cried not from sorrow, but from hope, because even if he never returned, she had them. But fate would bring him back, not when he deserved it, but when he was least prepared, and the truth he once refused to hear would come standing in front of him, in the arms of the woman he misjudged and the children he never knew he had. Morning in Veronica's house didn't begin. It erupted. One moment the sun was just peeking into the 9th ward, touching rooftops with soft gold. The next, Zayden and Zyla burst awake like they had alarms built into their bones. Their feet hit the floor before Veronica even opened her eyes. She heard their muffled voices, the clatter of toys, and what sounded suspiciously like her laundry basket being used as a boat. It was another day of motherhood, and another day of getting through it with enough grace to survive and enough humor to stay sane. Veronica pulled herself out of bed, stretched, and walked toward the noise. She found the twins in the hallway, sitting in the laundry basket exactly as she suspected. "We're sailing," Zayden yelled. "On the carpet?" Veronica asked. "Yes. The sharks can't get us." "What sharks?" Zyla pointed dramatically. "The floor sharks." Veronica rubbed her forehead. "I should have stayed in bed." But she didn't smile to herself. She smiled openly. These two could frustrate her and warm her heart at the same time. It was their special talent. "All right," she said, clapping her hands. "Let's get breakfast started before y'all sink the entire house." "We not sinkin'," both shouted in unison. "We'll see," she muttered under her breath. The kitchen became a stage for negotiation. "Mommy, I want pancakes. No, I want cereal. I want both." "You can't have both," Veronica said, pulling out a frying pan. "We having pancakes today." Zyla frowned. "But cereal is faster." Veronica flipped her hair dramatically. "Well, I am slow today, so pancakes win." Zayden climbed onto a chair like he was conducting serious business. "Mommy, can I help?" "You? Help?" Veronica raised a brow. "Last time you helped, we had flour snowing inside the house." He grinned proudly, remembering. "It was fun. For you," she said, "not for my floor." Still, she let him stir the batter while carefully guiding his hand. Zyla added blueberries one by one as if she were decorating a masterpiece. They were messy, loud, off balance, and impatient, but they were hers. When breakfast was finally served, both children took 3 bites before becoming distracted. "Mommy, look at my pancake. It's shaped like a cloud." "No, mine's shaped like a dinosaur." "That's not a dinosaur. That's a blob. A blobsaur." "Stop arguing," Veronica said flatly. "And eat." They ate. For 2 seconds. Then they wiggled again. She shook her head. "If I survive this phase, I deserve a trophy." Once the breakfast chaos settled, Veronica moved to her work table in the living room. Even with twins racing around like tiny athletes, she always found time to grind. Event design wasn't just a job. It was her way forward, a way to provide for the twins, build something for herself, and prove she could stand tall without depending on anybody. Fabric samples were spread out neatly. Ribbon spools, floral foam, glitter-free lanterns — she avoided glitter now after the last disaster — and printed checklists filled the table. She checked her upcoming tasks: bridal shower centerpieces, a community banquet needing lighting, a birthday backdrop delivery. Every job mattered. Every dollar helped. Her phone buzzed with a message from a client confirming tomorrow's consultation. Veronica replied quickly, thumbs moving with practiced ease. She had grown into this career, not because it was perfect, but because it allowed her to stretch her creativity while raising 2 energetic humans. Zyla approached with a marker. "Mommy, can I draw on your list?" "No, ma'am. Just a little." "No. What if I draw a heart?" "That'll be a no." Zyla sighed dramatically and walked away. Veronica shook her head and laughed quietly. Being a mother had taught her something no event ever could: timing. Nothing in her house happened when she planned it, but everything got done eventually. As she worked, the twins played nearby. Their chatter filled the room along with the rustle of craft materials. Veronica loved them fiercely, but motherhood came with shadows too. The moments when silence felt heavier than noise. There were mornings she felt a tug inside her chest, not longing but something close, a memory of Wesley's laughter, the way he held her hand by the river, the softness in his tone when he said her name. She didn't think of him every day, not anymore, but some feelings didn't disappear. They simply settled behind other emotions, waiting quietly. When she looked at Zayden's eyes, wide and curious, sometimes she caught a flicker of something that reminded her of Wesley. And when Zyla tilted her head while concentrating, Veronica saw a familiar focus she used to tease him about. But she never said these things out loud, not even to herself. He had walked away. He had chosen not to hear her truth. He had shut a door she never got to hold open. Her life didn't pause after he left. It reformed. Stronger, sharper, more determined, she learned not to let her heart lead the way every time. She learned to guard herself. She learned that closure doesn't always come with explanations. Still, now and then, when the twins laughed together in perfect harmony, she wondered, would he have loved them? Would he have stayed if he knew? Would he have believed her if he listened? But those questions held no power anymore, not compared to the life she built with two toddlers who believed the world revolved around snacks and bedtime stories. Midday arrived with another wave of activity. Veronica loaded the twins into the car for a quick grocery pickup. The drive was short, but the commentary in the back seat felt endless. Mommy, clouds look like cotton candy. Mommy, can clouds fall? Mommy, my foot hot. Why your foot hot, Zayden? It just is. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind, she said, though she smiled while saying it. At the store, they walked in with determination. Zayden pushing the small cart like he was training for a competition, Zyla dancing behind him like music played only for her. Stay close, Veronica instructed, grabbing items quickly. Mommy, can we get snacks? No, but maybe snacks? No. What about small snacks? They pouted in harmony. After a few minutes, Zyla tugged on her shirt. Mommy, Zayden picking too fast. Zayden insisted he wasn't. The cart wobbled dangerously. Veronica grabbed it before it toppled over. You two trying to make headlines today? We not trying, Zayden said proudly. It's happening by itself. She shook her head, cheeks tight from holding back laughter. Life with them was exhausting, unpredictable, and beautifully messy. Yet even in moments like this, she felt proud. Proud of surviving, proud of providing, proud of being both mother and father when she had no choice. The truth was, Veronica had settled into this life. Not easily, not instantly, but with strength built from the ashes of what she lost. She didn't wait for Wesley to return. She didn't search for him. She didn't expect him to realize what he missed. She lived. She moved on. She worked. She loved her children. She found joy in small moments. She created a world where the twins' laughter echoed louder than old heartbreak. And even though fate was quietly repositioning itself behind the scenes, preparing for a collision she didn't see coming, Veronica continued her day with no sense of the storm forming on the horizon. For now, she managed grocery runs, work deadlines, sticky fingers, and bedtime battles. For now, her life made sense. For now, the past stayed where she left it. Or so she believed. Because just days after this ordinary, chaotic morning, she would turn down an aisle in a store and see a man she never expected to face again. And the world she held together on strength and routine would shift all over again. In another city hundreds of miles from New Orleans, Wesley Henderson moved through his mornings like a man sleepwalking through a routine he once believed defined him. His penthouse overlooked a skyline filled with glass and steel, the kind of view people worked their whole lives to afford. But Wesley no longer saw it. His eyes passed over the buildings without interest, without recognition, without the pride he used to feel. He brewed coffee, the expensive blend he'd ordered for years, but even that no longer warmed him. He drank it because the habit was familiar, not because he enjoyed it. The taste reminded him of mornings he used to text Veronica, quick jokes, cheerful little messages before they both started their day. He never admitted it aloud, but he had loved those mornings, loved waking up knowing someone waited to hear from him. Now he woke up to silence. His assistant often described him as efficient and unshakable, but that wasn't the truth. It was simply the version of him he presented to the world. Behind the polished suits and calm exterior, something had shifted, something quiet but heavy. He worked harder than ever, burying himself in schedules, proposals, expansion projects, and investor calls that lasted well past sunset. He bought new properties, opened a new headquarters branch, and appeared in business magazines as one of the industry's most influential minds. But none of the accolades filled the empty places inside him. People congratulated him often. Your numbers this quarter are impressive. You're dominating the real estate market. He nodded, smiled politely, thanked them. But when he returned to his office, the praise dissolved into silence. He sat behind a large mahogany desk, surrounded by awards and certificates, yet felt like a stranger in his own accomplishments. The truth was simple. He had built an empire, but he couldn't build peace. His employees didn't know it. His partners didn't know it. No one knew it. But every now and then, he found himself staring out the window and thinking of New Orleans, the city he avoided like a wound that never closed. He avoided the music. He avoided the culture. He avoided the memory of a woman with warmth in her laughter and sunlight in her voice. And deep down, a part of him believed he deserved to avoid it. Because returning meant facing the weight of a decision he made too fast and too blindly. It always happened the same way. He reached for something, a pen, a document, a cup, and his mind slipped backward. He saw Veronica smiling at him during their first dinner together. He heard her teasing him about being too serious. He remembered her guiding him through the bright chaos of New Orleans streets, pointing out details he never noticed. He remembered how she listened when he talked about work pressures. He remembered how she didn't flinch when he admitted he felt lonely despite his success. He remembered how he walked away from her without stopping long enough to hear her truth. It wasn't guilt that haunted him. Guilt was too simple a word. It was the realization that something real had existed between them, something rare, and he had thrown it away not because she hurt him, but because he didn't know how to handle something that demanded vulnerability. Over time, Wesley convinced himself he had made the right decision. People do that. They rewrite memories to survive their choices, but some memories refuse to be rewritten. Veronica was one of them. One morning, his assistant Olivia stepped into his office with a stack of folders. She spoke confidently, as she always did. "These are the upcoming proposals needing your review, Mr. Henderson, and," she hesitated, "this last one, the board hopes you'll consider personally." Wesley barely looked up. "Leave it on the desk," but Olivia didn't move immediately. "It's from New Orleans," she said gently. The pen slipped from his fingers and hit the desk with a soft tap. A pulse of heat went through him, brief but sharp. His jaw tightened. He hadn't heard that city's name spoken aloud in months. He swallowed. "Thank you. You can leave it." She nodded and stepped out, closing the door behind her. Wesley stared at the simple manila folder sitting on top of the stack. It looked normal, harmless, no different from any other project proposal. Yet even from across the room it felt heavier. New Orleans. He knew that logo. He remembered seeing it across flyers Veronica used to bring home. His stomach twisted. For several minutes he didn't touch the folder. He simply stared. Eventually, he reached for it. It wasn't a dramatic motion, just a quiet decision he made without fully understanding why. He opened the folder, scanning the details. The proposal described a community project aimed at restoring a historic ballroom and nearby spaces. The ballroom had been used for charity events, weddings, festivals, the very same places where Veronica worked her magic. He could almost smell the faint scent of floral arrangements she used to bring home. He could almost hear her excitement when she talked about transforming a space. He could almost feel the warmth she carried into every room. He closed the folder, then opened it again, then closed it. His breath came slower, heavier. He hadn't allowed himself to feel anything about New Orleans for years. He hadn't allowed himself to revisit the moment he ended something meaningful without asking a single necessary question. But now, with that folder in front of him, the truth pressed on him. He missed her, not in a nostalgic what-if way, in a deep, steady way that came from knowing he had wronged someone who didn't deserve it. Regret, real regret, settled over him like a weight. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just present, and it stayed. He tried to focus on other work. He tried to read through legal documents, investor updates, acquisition plans. But every time he reached for a pen, he felt the folder beneath his palm. Every time he looked toward the window, he remembered the Mississippi glinting under city lights. Every time he pressed his fingers to his eyes, he saw Veronica's face on the last day they spoke, confusion turning into hurt, hurt turning into clarity. He had been wrong, deeply wrong, and he had known it for years, though he never admitted it aloud. Now, with this chance, this forced reminder, he felt something shifting inside him. He picked up his phone and dialed his travel coordinator. "Book a flight to New Orleans," he said, voice low. There was a pause. "Round trip, sir?" He hesitated. "Yes," but his tone didn't match the word, because the truth was, he wasn't ready to admit what he feared most. This wasn't a business trip. This wasn't about a ballroom restoration. This wasn't about reviewing a proposal. This was about facing a woman whose absence never stopped echoing inside him. Wesley stood in his bedroom that evening, suitcase open on the bed. He folded shirts with mechanical precision, tucked in ties he probably wouldn't need, placed work files in one section and chargers in another, but every few minutes he paused, staring at nothing. He wasn't packing for a business meeting. He was packing for a city filled with memories, a city he avoided because he knew returning meant confronting a truth he chose not to face. As he zipped the suitcase closed, the weight in his chest didn't ease. But he didn't stop. He was done avoiding. He was done pretending he didn't care. Whether he returned with closure, forgiveness, or more regret, he didn't know. But he needed to go. Even if it meant discovering that Veronica had truly moved on. Even if it meant realizing he had no place in her world anymore. He needed to face what he ran from. He needed to hear the truth he refused to listen to 3 years ago. And somewhere deep inside him, beneath fear, beneath pride, a quiet hope flickered. Maybe she would let him speak. Maybe she would let him apologize. The next morning, before sunrise painted the city, Wesley grabbed his suitcase and left the penthouse. The elevator ride felt longer than usual, each floor passing like a small countdown towards something he couldn't name. At the airport, he sat near the window, watching planes move across the runway. His reflection stared back at him, older, more worn, different. He wasn't the man Veronica knew. He wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. When the boarding call echoed through the terminal, he stood slowly. His chest tightened. This was happening. This was real. He stepped onto the plane, heart beating faster than usual. He didn't know that just days later, he would walk into a grocery store aisle, and his entire world would tilt when he saw the woman he left standing alone 3 years ago, and the 2 children holding her hands. New Orleans welcomed Wesley back with the kind of heat that clung to skin, holding on to him like the city remembered he once belonged to someone here. He stepped out of the rental car and inhaled a breath that tasted like humidity, distant trumpet notes, and crowded memories. He hadn't been gone for decades, only a few years, but it felt longer. Time stretched differently when regret walked beside you. He checked into a small hotel near the community district, a quiet place without the polished shine he usually preferred. Luxury didn't fit this trip. This wasn't about image or comfort. This was about truth, even if he wasn't ready for all of it. After settling in, he walked the streets near the local marketplace, trying to adjust to the rhythm again. Everything felt familiar and unfamiliar at once. The accents, the energy, the street vendors laughing as they arranged displays. It all reminded him of the woman he'd avoided thinking about for years. Eventually, he ducked inside a grocery store to pick up water and a few basics for the week. He moved through the aisles slowly, reading labels he didn't really care about, his mind drifting to old conversations with Veronica. She once joked he didn't know the difference between pancake syrup and actual maple syrup. She was right. He still didn't. He turned into the cereal aisle absent-mindedly, scanning the rows when he froze. Completely froze, because halfway down the aisle stood Veronica, her hair pulled back loosely, her posture relaxed but alert, her eyes focused on comparing cereal prices. She held the same calm confidence she always had, even with 2 little children buzzing around her legs. Wesley's breath left him in a quiet rush. Veronica. Here, real. He hadn't prepared for this. He thought he'd find her eventually, maybe after days of searching, after planning the right words. But fate didn't care about his plans. It threw her in front of him with no warning at all. She hadn't seen him yet. She was too busy redirecting the little boy trying to climb the shelf. Zayden, get down. You go make the cereal. Fall on your head. I'm checking which one tastes good. You can't taste by touching the box. Yes, I can. The little girl danced around them, humming loudly as she hugged a stuffed fruit snack bag like a prized treasure. Veronica leaned down. Zyla, put that back. We're not getting that. But it's calling me. Tell it to stop calling. Wesley swallowed, struggling to make sense of what he was seeing. The twins, the boy and girl, were unmistakably hers. They had her energy, her brightness, her stubborn charm. He stared, unable to move, unable to blink. Then, as if fate wanted to tighten the moment, both children lifted their heads at the exact same time. Zayden noticed him first. He stared at Wesley openly, without fear, curiosity in his wide eyes. Then Zyla peeked out from behind a cereal display, studying him like she was judging whether he looked friendly or dangerous. Her expression softened into curiosity, too. Before Veronica could turn, the twins blurted loudly, "Mommy, somebody's staring at you." Her head swung toward them, then toward Wesley. He saw the moment recognition hit her, the subtle widening of her eyes, the stiffness in her shoulders, the way her hand tightened around the shopping cart handle. Veronica didn't gasp. She didn't panic. She simply froze, just as he had. Wesley felt the world narrow to just the space between them. "Veronica," he said softly, his voice cracking. Her lips parted, but for a moment no sound came out. Then she steadied herself, finding the strength she always carried. "Wesley," she said, "what are you doing here?" He stepped forward cautiously, as if one wrong move would break the floor beneath them. "Business," he swallowed, "and I didn't expect to see you. That makes 2 of us." The twins stared between them like they were watching a movie unfold live. Zyla tugged at Veronica's shirt. "Mommy, who is he?" Veronica's throat tightened. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She wasn't ready. Not here, not now. Wesley's gaze drifted to the twins again. Something in his posture shifted, a flicker of confusion, a spark of familiarity, then a quiet breath that trembled before escaping. They were 3 years old, 3 years since he left. He felt dizzy. Are they your children?" he whispered. Veronica nodded slowly. "Yes." "How old?" His voice barely held together. 3. His entire expression changed. 3 years. The number hit him like a wave. He stared at the twins again, really stared, taking in every small detail. Zayden's curious tilt of the head, Zyla's thoughtful frown, their eyes, their features, their presence. The familiarity clawed at him, refusing to be ignored. He felt something inside his chest twist painfully. "Veronica," he breathed. "Please tell me." His voice broke. "Are they?" His question hung between them, fragile and enormous. Veronica didn't look away. She didn't soften her expression to spare him. She answered with a steadiness built from years of raising children alone. "Yes, Wesley." For a moment, he didn't move. He didn't breathe. He simply stood there, the truth slamming into him with the force of every year he'd missed. His knees nearly buckled. He grabbed the shelf beside him to stay upright. His hands shook visibly. Tears gathered at the edge of his eyes, blurring the cereal boxes behind Veronica. "Oh my God," he whispered. 3 years. I lost 3 years. Zyla stepped closer, her little voice gentle. "Sir, are you okay?" Wesley let out a sound that wasn't quite a cry, but it wasn't steady either. "No," he whispered honestly. "I'm not." People walked past without noticing the emotional collapse happening beside the cereal, but Veronica felt the shift, felt the weight, felt the years folding into this single impossible moment. She hadn't planned this, she hadn't prepared for this, but it was happening, right here, right now. "Come on," she said quietly. "We should talk outside." The Louisiana sun hit them as they stepped into the parking lot. Heat lifted from the pavement, wrapping around them as if the weather knew something heavy was unfolding. Wesley followed Veronica wordlessly, each step unsteady. The twins held hands, swinging between them without fully understanding the weight around them. Finally, near the edge of the lot, Veronica stopped. The twins sat on the curb with their snacks, perfectly content. The space between her and Wesley felt thick with years of silence and questions neither had been able to voice. He wiped his face once, trying to gather himself. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out raw, not angry, wounded. Veronica crossed her arms lightly, not defensive, just steady. "You left without listening, Wesley. You didn't give me the chance to explain anything. You didn't want answers. You only wanted your conclusion." He flinched. "You believed I betrayed you," she continued. "You made your choice before I even opened my mouth." He tried to swallow, but his throat tightened. I thought the messages meant something else." "You never asked," Veronica said gently. "You never stayed long enough to hear the truth." He exhaled shakily, pressing his palms to his eyes. "Veronica, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know they existed. I didn't know." "I know," she said softly. The tenderness in her voice surprised him. Not forgiveness, just truth. He looked at the twins again, then back at her. Can I be part of their lives?" The question trembled, not entitled, not demanding, simply hopeful. Veronica didn't answer immediately. She watched her children first, the 2 little souls who had carried her through exhaustion, joy, fear, and growth. Then she looked at him. "We'll talk about that," she said slowly. "But not today. Not like this." He nodded, tears still threatening. "I'll wait. I'll do whatever you need." The twins finished their snacks and ran back toward them, giggling without concern. Zayden pointed to Wesley. "Mommy, he looks sad. He just got surprised," she said. "I like surprises," Zyla announced proudly. Wesley let out the smallest broken laugh, wiping his face again. Veronica watched him, really watched him, and she saw a man both shattered and awakening. This wasn't forgiveness. This was the beginning of truth, a truth 3 years overdue. And the city around them, loud and vibrant as ever, felt like it was leaning in to listen. The day after the grocery store encounter felt strangely quiet for Veronica. The twins were their usual energetic selves, bouncing from one activity to another, but Veronica moved through the morning with a different awareness, a heaviness she hadn't carried in years. Seeing Wesley again had stirred memories she spent a long time learning to live with, not erase. She tried to shake it off as she cleaned the living room, picked up crayons from under the couch, and wiped syrup off the counter. But every now and then, her mind drifted back to his face, the shock, the trembling, the questions he couldn't shape into words. She didn't regret telling him the truth. She regretted that the truth had come 3 years later. By noon, she had managed to settle into a routine again. The twins were on the floor drawing questionable masterpieces, Zyla coloring with intense focus while Zayden scribbled like the paper owed him money. Veronica was washing dishes when she heard a knock at the door. A soft knock, not hesitant, respectful. She didn't need to guess who it was. Her breath steadied itself, and she wiped her hands on a towel before walking to the door. There he stood, Wesley. He looked nothing like the man who walked away years ago. That version of him had been composed, guarded, convinced he understood everything. This version looked human, real, carrying something in his expression that felt like humility. "Hi," he said quietly. Veronica absorbed the moment before responding. "You found the house." "I remembered the street," he replied. "I wasn't sure, but I hoped." She stepped outside, closing the door gently behind her so the twins wouldn't rush out and climb him like a tree. They walked to the porch steps, the same steps she'd sat on during long nights when the twins were babies and sleep felt like a negotiation she could never win. The same steps she'd cried on once when her hormones were high and her patience low. The same steps she'd stood on when she decided to raise her children with pride rather than bitterness. Now those steps held the weight of two adults facing something long overdue. They sat, not close, not far, just enough space to breathe and still feel the tension thick between them. Wesley took a moment before speaking. "Thank you for talking to me yesterday," he said. "I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't," Veronica said honestly. "Nothing about yesterday was easy." He nodded, fingers intertwined tightly. "I didn't sleep last night. I kept thinking about everything I missed, everything I didn't know, everything I should have known." Veronica didn't respond right away. She watched him, studying the small shifts in his demeanor. The polished CEO energy was gone. He wasn't here as a businessman. He wasn't here as someone with answers. He was here as a man trying to face the truth he ran from. "What exactly are you trying to say?" she asked. Wesley took a breath. "I'm trying to say I'm sorry. Not in a quick way. Not in a let's fix this fast way. I'm sorry for how I reacted, for how I left, for not letting you speak, for believing something without giving you space to explain." Her gaze softened, but only slightly. He continued, eyes on the ground now. "I've been thinking about that day for years, but yesterday made it real. Seeing the twins, it—" He stopped, as if the words were too heavy to lift. "It broke me," he whispered. Veronica exhaled, leaning her elbows on her knees. "Wesley, before anything else, you need to understand something about me. I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a long time, but I had to let it go because anger doesn't raise kids. Love does. Patience does. Work does." He looked at her fully now. "I don't hate you," she continued, "but that doesn't mean the past didn't shape how I move today." He nodded slowly. "I understand." "Do you?" she challenged gently. "Because understanding means accepting that I owe you nothing except the truth. Understanding means you don't get to step in and decide things now just because you're ready." Wesley swallowed. "I'm not asking to decide anything. I'm asking to be allowed to show up." Her eyes flickered with something he couldn't read. "Showing up isn't hard. Staying is—" That sentence hit him immediately. He didn't argue. Veronica straightened slightly, hands clasped in her lap. "If you're going to be around, there are boundaries." "Name them," he said quickly. "You don't get to arrive when it's convenient for you." He nodded. "You don't talk to the twins about the past, not yet. Of course, you don't try to buy your way into their affection. I wouldn't, and you don't disappear again. Not emotionally, not physically." His voice cracked. "I won't," "Good," she said, "because I won't protect you from the consequences if you hurt them." Her tone wasn't threatening. It was simply true. Wesley breathed out slowly. "I want to learn how to be in their lives. I don't expect you to trust me immediately. I don't even trust myself yet when it comes to this. But I want to try. I want to be present. I want to grow into whatever role they need." Veronica studied him, really studied him. The tightness in his shoulders, the tension in his jaw, the sincerity around his eyes. He wasn't performing. He wasn't hiding. He was simply being human. "You were always good with honesty," she said softly, "at least before things fell apart." He gave a weak smile. "I'm trying to return to that." The door behind them creaked open. A small voice called, "Mommy?" Zyla stepped out holding a doll whose hair had been styled into something that looked like it had survived a windstorm. Zayden followed behind her with a plastic dinosaur he claimed could fight anything, including thunder. They froze when they saw Wesley sitting there again. Veronica motioned them forward. "Come say hi properly." The twins approached cautiously. Zyla tilted her head. "Hi again." "Hi," Wesley said gently, his voice softening in a way Veronica hadn't heard in years. Zayden held up his dinosaur. "Do you like dinosaurs?" Wesley blinked. "I haven't thought about dinosaurs in a long time." "That's sad," Zayden declared. "Dinosaurs are amazing." Wesley nodded seriously. "I'll study them." Zyla giggled. "Mommy, he gonna study dinosaurs." Veronica allowed herself a smile. "Looks like it." The moment was simple but meaningful. No tears, no heavy emotion, Just a man and two children taking a small, quiet step toward familiarity. After the twins ran back inside, Wesley looked at Veronica again. I don't know how to do any of this. I'm afraid I'll mess up. I'm afraid they won't like me. I'm afraid I'll disappoint them. But the biggest fear I have— He paused. She waited. Is that I wasted too much time to be anything to them now. His honesty was raw but controlled, not dramatic, not self-pitying, just truth. Veronica's voice softened. Wesley, kids don't measure time like adults do. They measure presence. If you're consistent, if you're kind, if you stay, they'll form their own understanding of who you are. He took that in slowly. And what about you? He asked quietly. How do I rebuild anything with you? You don't, she answered without cruelty. Not right now, maybe not ever. That's not the goal. The goal is them. He nodded, accepting it even though something in his chest tightened. I can respect that, he said. I need you to, she replied. The conversation settled into a quiet acceptance. Not closure, that would require more time. Not trust, that had to be earned. Not forgiveness, that wasn't owed. But something was shifting, something beginning. Would it be all right, Wesley asked carefully, if I visited again tomorrow? Maybe take them to the park? With you there, of course. Veronica inhaled slowly, then nodded. We can try that. A soft relief washed over him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. Tomorrow is just tomorrow. What matters is every day after. He understood. He stood, ready to leave, but hesitated. Veronica, I'm grateful, even if you don't believe it. She looked at him for a long second. I believe you're trying. That's all I believe for now. He accepted that too. Then he walked down her porch steps, each one feeling like a move towards something unfamiliar but necessary. From behind the screen door, Zyla's voice rang out. Bye, dinosaur man. Wesley stopped. A laugh escaped him, quiet but real. Bye, Zyla, he said softly. Veronica watched from the doorway, her heart steady, her mind cautious, her strength intact. Tomorrow would come soon, and nothing about their lives would be the same. The next afternoon arrived faster than Wesley expected. He parked a few houses down from Veronica's home, trying to steady the mixture of nerves and anticipation twisting inside him. He wasn't sure what made him more anxious, meeting the twins again, or standing beside Veronica while doing it. Both required a level of vulnerability he hadn't practiced in a long time. He approached the porch slowly. Before he could knock, the door flew open, and Zayden dashed out wearing a cape tied around his shoulders and mismatched socks. Zyla followed, holding a hairbrush and a plastic tiara. Mommy said you coming, Zayden announced loudly. I am, Wesley replied, surprised but smiling. You ready to play? Zayden challenged. Wesley blinked. I think so. You not sure? I'm learning. Zyla stepped forward and held up the hairbrush. You gotta brush my doll before we go. Wesley hesitated, glancing at Veronica, who appeared behind them with her arms folded, watching with an amused but controlled expression. It's part of the rules, Zyla explained. Oh, he said seriously, then absolutely. He knelt, taking the doll gently, brushing its tangled hair with the same focus he used for spreadsheets. Zyla supervised closely. Brush soft, she instructed. She's sensitive. Yes, ma'am. When he finished, Zyla seemed satisfied. Okay, you can come. Veronica raised an eyebrow. Look at you following orders already. I take direction well, he replied. You better, she said. They walked to the playground 3 blocks away, Zayden running ahead like he was leading a parade, Zyla skipping behind him. Veronica walked beside Wesley, maintaining a comfortable distance. It wasn't awkward. It was cautious, thoughtful. When they reached the playground, the twins sprinted toward the slide. Wesley took a moment to absorb the scene. Children laughing, parents chatting, swings squeaking, sunlight catching the tops of the slides. It was simple, but foreign. His life had never involved spaces like this. He didn't dislike them. He just didn't know how to belong in them. Before you do anything, Veronica said, you gotta learn one rule. He turned to her. What rule? You don't panic every 5 seconds. Why would I panic? As if on cue, Zayden climbed the ladder, skipped a rung, and nearly slipped before catching himself. Wesley gasped and stepped forward. Veronica put a hand out, stopping him. Stop. Fine. He almost fell. He does that every day. That's not comforting. It's accurate. He took a breath. Okay. Not panicking. Trying. Push us, Zyla yelled from the swings. Wesley walked toward them with the seriousness of someone approaching a mechanics exam. He positioned himself behind Zyla's swing. Not too hard, Veronica called out. But not too soft either. What does that mean? He muttered. He pushed. Too gently. Zyla barely moved. You gotta push better, she said, disappointed. Okay, adjusting intensity, Wesley replied. His next push was stronger, but too strong. Zyla squealed as the swing rose higher than she expected. Lower, lower, she cried. Wesley froze. Sorry. Veronica jogged over, suppressing a laugh. Here, she said, guiding his hands. Think steady, not wild. He followed her example carefully. Zyla settled into a comfortable rhythm. This good, she approved. Zayden hopped off his swing and inspected Wesley like a coach evaluating a rookie. You learning, he said thoughtfully. I'm trying, Wesley replied. You not good yet. I know, but you can practice. Thank you. I think. After 20 minutes of swings, slides, and running in circles for no reason, the twins declared they were starving. I got snacks, Veronica said, pulling a container from the bag she brought. Zayden leaned toward Wesley. You bring snacks? Wesley blinked. I didn't know that was required. Zayden shrugged. Everybody should bring snacks. I'll remember that next time, Wesley promised. They sat under a shaded tree with fruit slices and crackers. Zyla offered Wesley a piece of her apple. For you, she said. He accepted it gently. Thank you. You gotta eat it. If I give you snack, you gotta eat it. Is that a rule too? He asked. Yes, she replied firmly. He bit the apple. It's good. Zyla nodded proudly. I choose good snacks. Veronica watched them quietly, not smiling too widely, not softening too quickly. But something in her eyes shifted, just a little. She saw how he listened to the twins, how he didn't dismiss them, how he adjusted himself to their pace, their volume, their unpredictable nature. It wasn't perfect, but it was sincere. They walked home after the playground, the twins still bursting with energy even though Wesley looked like he needed a nap and possibly a chiropractor. Inside the house, Veronica began preparing for the evening. The twins needed their hair combed before dinner, and she sat Zyla on a small stool in the living room. You want to try? Veronica asked Wesley suddenly. He blinked. Try what? Combing Zyla's hair. Zyla's eyes lit up with anticipation. Yes, he can do it. Wesley froze. I don't know how. You go and learn, Zyla declared, handing him the brush. Veronica placed the products on the table. Spray bottle, conditioner, oil. I'll guide you, she said. But listen carefully. If you yank too hard, she'll scream loud enough to wake the whole block. Zyla nodded eagerly. Super loud. That's intimidating, Wesley said. Welcome to parenting, Veronica replied. He began gently, brushing slowly. Too soft, Zyla complained. He added a little more pressure. Better, she said. Veronica stepped behind him. Spray water first. He sprayed. Not that much, she said quickly, snatching the bottle as water dripped onto Zyla's socks. Zyla giggled. You learning? I feel like I've heard that a lot today, he said. You gonna keep hearing it, Veronica told him. Together, they worked through the sections, Veronica correcting angles and Wesley adjusting his hands. It wasn't smooth, but it was progress. When they finished, Zyla examined herself in a mirror. I look cute, she declared. Yes, you do, Veronica said. You did good, Zyla told Wesley, giving him a thumbs up. He looked at Veronica, not for praise, but for acknowledgement. She nodded once. Not bad. Coming from her, that meant something. As evening settled, Veronica announced bedtime. The twins protested dramatically. No bed, I'm not tired. My doll awakes, so I awake. Veronica sighed. Wesley, this is the part where you observe and wonder why you came. He smiled. I already wondered that earlier. They wrangled the twins through brushing teeth, putting away toys, and choosing bedtime stories. Zayden insisted on a dinosaur book. Zyla wanted a princess story. They compromised on both, somehow. Wesley sat on the floor beside the small beds, listening as Veronica read aloud. The twins slowly settled, their eyelids growing heavy. Zyla held Wesley's sleeve lightly. Zayden leaned his foot against Wesley's leg absent-mindedly. Small gestures, simple, but powerful. By the time the stories ended, the twins were asleep. Veronica closed the book softly and stood. Wesley rose too, watching the twins with a quiet awe he no longer hid. They're incredible, he said softly. They're a handful, Veronica corrected. He smiled. So are the best things in life. They stepped into the hallway slowly, closing the door behind them. For a moment neither spoke. Wesley turned to her. Thank you for letting me be here today. You did all right, she said. You didn't panic too much. You didn't break anything. And you didn't run. That last one matters most, he said quietly. She met his eyes, her voice calm but firm. Just keep showing up. Consistency matters more than anything. I will, he said. Good. Because they're getting attached. Fast. She paused. Don't give them a reason to regret that. I won't, he promised. She studied him again, not searching for perfection, just truth. And for the first time, she didn't find emptiness in him. She found effort, effort she didn't expect, effort she wasn't ready to trust, but effort she noticed. Tomorrow, he asked carefully. We'll see, she replied. But her tone was softer than yesterday, and Wesley held on to that. The morning after Wesley's first full day with the twins arrived with a stillness Veronica wasn't accustomed to. Usually, Saturdays were loud before sunrise, Zayden building towers out of cereal boxes or Zyla brushing her doll's hair like she had a salon appointment. But today, they were unusually settled, flipping through picture books on the living room rug while humming to themselves. Maybe peace felt possible because the previous day had shifted something in the house. Not just for the twins, for her too. She would never have admitted it aloud, but seeing Wesley try, really try, had softened something she thought was set in stone. Not forgiveness, not trust, just space, a space she wasn't expecting to hold. A knock sounded at the door, gentle, much like the first time he had shown up. She inhaled once, steadying her tone, then opened it. Wesley stood there with a bag in hand and a careful expression. I brought snacks, he said. Her eyebrows lifted. Trying to impress the judges? Yes, he answered honestly. I want to come prepared. She almost smiled. Almost. Come on in. The twins rushed him immediately. You brought snacks? Zayden asked, already reaching. I did, Wesley replied proudly. He handed the bag over like he was presenting treasure. Inside were apple slices, crackers, juice pouches, and a small pack of gummy bears. Zyla gasped as if he had given her a diamond. Mommy never buy these, she shouted. Because they make y'all bounce off walls, Veronica said dryly. Zyla didn't care. She hugged the gummy bears like they were precious. Can we go park again? Zayden asked. Not yet, Veronica said gently. Mommy and Wesley need to talk. Zayden frowned but accepted it. Zyla took her seat beside her doll and watched with the curiosity of someone observing grown-up business. Veronica motioned Wesley toward the porch. Let's talk outside. He nodded. Once they stepped outside, the air felt heavier, not in a bad way, in a necessary way. They stood for a moment before she spoke. You've been showing up, she said. That's good. I meant what I said yesterday. I want to be involved. I know, she replied. Which is why it's time you hear what you never stayed long enough to hear before. His throat tightened. He had been waiting for this moment since the store. I'm listening, he said. Veronica took a slow breath, not to gather dramatic effect, to steady herself. She never expected to revisit those days, not in detail, not with him. You remember the messages you saw, she began, the ones you thought meant I was choosing someone else. He nodded, shame flickering across his features. They came from my cousin, she said, the one who helped me get that design contract. His eyes widened. Cousin? Yes. His name wasn't in my phone because I had gotten a new one. He texted me from a different number about the job you encouraged me to apply for. You told me I should expand my event design work, remember? He swallowed. I remember. So when he texted things like, I can't wait to see you tonight, he meant the meeting at the venue. He meant going over the plans. Not anything romantic. Wesley's shoulders sank. And when he wrote, don't tell your man, I want this moment to be ours, he meant surprising me with a bonus he fought the company for. He didn't want me to tell you because he wanted the room reveal to feel special. Wesley brought a hand to his forehead. Veronica, You didn't stay, she said, not angrily. You confronted me with anger, not curiosity. You walked out before I could say 3 words. You blocked my number. You left New Orleans the next morning. He closed his eyes tightly, absorbing the weight of every detail. I wasn't cheating on you. I never even thought about anyone else. I was building something. For us. His voice broke. I should have listened. Yes, she said quietly. You should have. Veronica continued, her voice steady but honest. When you left, I was devastated. Not just because you didn't trust me, but because you disappeared without giving me a way to reach you. I called. I wrote emails. I tried to reach the company. Nothing. He winced. I changed everything, my number, my email, because I didn't want reminders of what I thought happened. She nodded. I figured, Veronica, you were pregnant. He forced the words out. You went through that alone because of me. Yes, she said. I did. Nothing in her tone was vindictive. It was simply the truth. I found out 2 weeks after you left, she said, and I realized I couldn't chase someone who didn't see me clearly. I had 2 lives depending on me. Grief had to wait. Questions had to wait. I became a mother first. His voice trembled. I don't deserve forgiveness. She didn't disagree. She also didn't rub it in. I'm not here to punish you, she said. But I'm also not here to pretend you didn't abandon something important. You missed appointments, ultrasounds, birthdays, first steps, first words. Each sentence landed like a gentle but firm strike. You missed being their dad. He didn't speak. He couldn't. I don't say that to hurt you. I say it because it's the truth you asked for. Wesley sat on the porch steps slowly, like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. I thought the worst of you, he whispered. I assumed the ugliest version of a woman who loved me. I didn't give you space to speak. I didn't honor what we had. I ran. I took cowardice and called it clarity. Veronica sat beside him, not touching, just close enough to hear him breathe. For 3 years, he continued, I lived with confusion, anger, sadness, but I blamed you for all of it. Never once did I consider that I was wrong. Never once did I stop to question my assumption. You were hurt, she acknowledged, but your hurt didn't justify abandoning me. I know, he whispered, and I'll carry this with me for the rest of my life. I'm so sorry the twins didn't get a father while they were forming their first memories. You can't rewrite the past, she said gently, but you can influence their future. He turned to her with eyes that held no pride left in them. I want a chance, he said, not to erase anything, not to force a picture-perfect ending. Just a chance to be present, a chance to be better, a chance to rebuild something with them, even if you never give me another chance personally. Veronica watched him closely. He wasn't begging, he wasn't performing. He was showing accountability, the real kind. You'll have conditions, she warned. I'll respect them. You'll have expectations. I'll meet them. You'll have moments where you feel overwhelmed. I'll stay. She paused. That last sentence mattered more than he knew. All right, she said finally. Here's what we'll do. No rushing, no forcing anything. You spend time with them under my supervision. We build gradually. You listen to them. You learn their routines. And you earn their comfort, not demand it. He nodded. And you earn mine, she added. He swallowed. I'll try. Every day. That's all I expect. She stood, and he rose with her. The twins peeked out from the screen door, their eyes curious. Mommy, we going park now? Zyla asked. Yes, baby, Veronica said. We going? Zayden grinned at Wesley. You coming? Wesley met Veronica's eyes before answering. She gave a small nod. Yes, he said softly. I'm coming. Family isn't always built in perfect lines. Sometimes it's shaped by mistakes, repaired with effort, and strengthened through accountability. If you've ever rebuilt something broken, trust, love, or relationship, drop a comment below. Your story might help someone else find courage. Morning light washed gently over the 9th ward as Veronica stepped outside, her coffee steaming in her hand, and her mind already bracing for another day of toddler chaos. But today, just like the last 12 days, there was something different in the rhythm of her morning. Wesley's black SUV appeared precisely at 8:15 a.m. Not 8:10, not 8:20, exactly 8:15. Every single day. He didn't honk, he didn't call, he didn't text, I'm here. He simply showed up, quiet, steady, consistent. The first morning he did it, Veronica had been annoyed. The 4th morning, confused. The 7th morning, suspicious. But now she couldn't deny a truth she didn't want to admit. He was keeping his word, and that terrified her more than his disappearance ever did. The twins burst out of the front door behind her, Zayden with one shoe on the wrong foot, Zyla with her shirt inside out. Mommy, he's here, Zyla announced as if Wesley were Santa Claus and not the father who'd missed their first years. Zayden ran in circles. Open the door! Open the door! Veronica breathed out slowly. Lord, give me strength. Both of y'all stop yelling before the whole street gets up, but the street was already up. Neighborhood aunties were planted on their porches like morning sentries wrapped in robes, sipping tea, gossip waiting on their tongues. There was no way this week-long spectacle of Wesley's consistency had gone unnoticed, especially not by Miss Althea. Her voice cracked through the air like a fried chicken timer. Veronica! That man back again? Veronica muttered under her breath. I knew it. Miss Althea waddled closer to the fence, staring down the street with exaggerated squinting. He here every day like rent money. Men don't do that unless they trying to fix something. 2 more aunties popped up out of nowhere, because in this neighborhood, gossip traveled faster than sunlight. Ain't that the man who vanished? Look at him now, showing up like he never left. He tall. That's redemption height. Veronica groaned. Can y'all not do this today? But the aunties ignored her entirely and continued narrating the moment like it was a soap opera. Wesley stepped out of his car, looking more relaxed than usual. He'd traded his stiff-collared shirts for a simple t-shirt and casual pants. Still looked too expensive for the sidewalk, but at least he didn't look like he was heading to negotiate a billion-dollar merger. "Good morning," he said softly, approaching the twins first. Zyla ran directly into him. "Hi, did you bring snacks?" Wesley knelt. "I brought those crackers you like, the ones shaped like animals." Zayden squealed. "The elephant ones?" "Yes," Wesley said, smiling. The aunties nearly fainted. One whispered way too loudly, "A man who brings snacks is a man who's trying to repent." Another added, "Put that man in a chair right here. We need to interview him." Veronica pressed a hand over her face. "Please stop talking." Wesley stood again, greeting her with a soft nod. "Morning, Veronica." "Morning," she replied, folding her arms, but not as tightly as before. Something about his presence didn't feel forced. It felt steady, like he wasn't showing up to perform or impress, but to learn, help, and just be there. "Ready for today?" he asked. "Depends," she said. "You remember the diaper bag this time?" He reached back into his SUV and held up the bag like a student proud of passing a test. "Packed it myself. The wipes, in the front pocket, snacks, 2 kinds, change of clothes." He hesitated. She smirked. "That's what I thought. Go back and get 'em. They messy." He rushed back to the SUV, grabbed a small folded outfit and returned, embarrassed but committed. The aunties watched the entire thing with wide eyes. That man humble now. Look how he running back and forth. Love'll do that. He moving like he's scared to mess up. When Wesley returned, Veronica simply said, "Good. Let's go." The twins grabbed his hands, naturally, Zyla on the left, Zayden on the right, swinging between them as they walked. Something in Veronica's chest tightened at the sight. It shouldn't have affected her. She told herself she wouldn't let it, but it did, because her babies looked happy, because they trusted him without hesitation, because he handled them gently, patiently, attentively, as if memorizing everything he'd missed. As they walked down the block, Wesley kept glancing at the twins with tiny smiles he didn't even seem aware of. Every morning for 2 weeks, he had learned something new: how to buckle booster seats, how to keep Zyla from wandering, how to distract Zayden during meltdown mode, how to clean little hands without acting squeamish, how to ask Veronica before doing anything important. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying, and in this neighborhood, effort was a language everyone understood. Halfway down the street, Miss Althea shouted one last comment. "Wesley, if you hurt her again, I'm flattening your tires." Wesley froze mid-step. Yes, ma'am." Veronica couldn't help it. She burst into laughter. Real laughter, free laughter, the kind she hadn't felt around him in years. She didn't look at him, but she knew he heard it. She knew he felt something shift, too. When they reached the small playground, Wesley lifted Zayden onto the slide and steadied Zyla as she climbed. There was no hesitation, no stiffness, no checking his phone. He was present. Watching him, Veronica felt her walls tremble, not fall, just tremble, but even that was more than she expected. She sat on the bench, pretending to scroll her phone while keeping one eye on the twins, but she realized something startling. She trusted him enough to look away. Just a little, but still, trust. "Do you want me to push them?" Wesley asked, pointing at the swings. "Yeah," she replied. "Go ahead." Zayden screamed. "Higher!" Zyla yelled. "Not too high." Wesley found the perfect middle ground. The twins laughed like the sky itself was tickling them, and Veronica watched with a quiet ache in her chest. She remembered the man he used to be. She saw the man he was trying to become. Both versions existed in front of her right now. 2 weeks ago, she couldn't even imagine this scene. 2 months ago, she thought she'd never hear his name again. 3 years ago, she prayed for closure she never got. Now here he was, showing up, standing in the place he abandoned, filling shoes he once ran from. Wesley walked back to her after the swings, adjusting the shoulder strap of the diaper bag like it was natural now. He sat beside her, not too close, not too far. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked, surprised. "For letting me do this, for letting me learn them, for giving me space instead of shutting me out." She didn't respond immediately, but she didn't shut down either. She sipped her water and said, "Just keep showing up." "I will," he said firmly. For the first time, she believed him, not because of his words, but because of 2 weeks of action, 2 weeks of consistency, 2 weeks of accountability, 2 weeks of letting the children lead him and letting Veronica's boundaries guide him, 2 weeks of humility, 2 weeks of choosing growth instead of escape. The wind rustled the leaves above them. The twins giggled in the distance. A neighborhood dog barked somewhere down the block. Everything felt simple in that moment, and for a woman who had lived in emotional storms, simple felt like a miracle. Wesley glanced at her once more, voice low, honest. "I'm not here to erase the past. I just want to build better from this point on." Veronica turned her head slightly but didn't look at him directly. Then keep walking the path. Don't sprint it. He nodded. I can do that. And for the first time in a very long time, Veronica allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this chapter of her life wouldn't end the way the last one did. The Louisiana sunset had a way of softening everything it touched. Street signs glowed a little warmer. Porch lights flickered on like greeting smiles. And in Veronica's small Ninth Ward kitchen, the golden hour made the space feel like a place where forgiveness could grow, even if she wasn't ready to name it. The twins sat at the table banging their spoons rhythmically against their bowls, waiting for dinner. Zyla hummed a tune she probably invented on the spot, and Zayden kept repeating, "Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet?" Veronica exhaled. "Zayden, my love, if you ask me one more time, I'm serving you patience for dinner." He froze, thought about it, then whispered to his sister, "I don't think patience tastes good." Zyla agreed. "Nope." Before Veronica could respond, a gentle knock sounded on the front door. Wesley. Same time every evening now, never early, never late. Just dependable. She wiped her hands on a towel and walked to the door. Before she even opened it, she heard the familiar sound of him taking a small breath, the one he always took when he was nervous. She opened the door. "Hey," Wesley smiled slightly. "Hey, I brought the cornbread." Veronica raised an eyebrow. "You made it." He held up a container. Miss Althea supervised. "Oh, Lord." Veronica stepped aside. "Come in." The moment Wesley stepped inside, the twins hollered in unison. "Wesley!" They ran toward him like joyful chaos, crashing into his legs with absolute trust. He bent down, hugging them both tightly. "Did you two behave today?" he asked. "No," Zayden shouted. "Yes," Zyla countered. Veronica shook her head. "The truth is somewhere in the middle." Wesley chuckled, following her into the kitchen. He set the cornbread on the counter and rolled up his sleeves without being asked. It still startled her each time, how comfortable he looked now in her space. The first week, he moved like he was afraid to touch anything. Now he walked to the sink, washed his hands, and grabbed plates like he'd memorized where everything went. Not assuming, not taking over, just helping. "Want me to set the table?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, thank you." They moved around the kitchen with an ease that crept up on them quietly. She slid pots around the stove. He laid out plates and cups. Zyla danced in circles because toddlers have unlimited energy. Zayden tried to sneak a biscuit and got caught instantly. "Put it back," Wesley said gently. Zayden sighed dramatically and obeyed. Watching Wesley learn the twins' rhythms was something Veronica never expected to witness. He no longer flinched when they yelled. He no longer panicked when both talked at the same time. He didn't freeze when Zyla tugged his sleeve or when Zayden climbed him like a tree. He adjusted. He listened. He softened. And the house softened with him. As they sat for dinner, Veronica served gumbo, rice, and greens. Wesley took his bowl, inhaled deeply, and said, "This smells incredible." Zyla pointed a spoon at him. "It's hot. Blow it." "I will," he said. "Thank you for the tip." Zayden leaned close to Wesley, whispering loudly, "She likes when you say thank you." Veronica nearly choked. "Boy, stop telling people my business." Wesley tried to hide a smile, but the joy in his eyes gave him away. Dinner was loud, messy, and full of tiny moments that felt like more than routine. Zyla insisted Wesley try the greens first. Zayden asked for seconds before finishing his firsts. Veronica told them to stop dropping crumbs everywhere. Wesley wiped Zyla's chin with a napkin. No one rushed, no one argued, no one pretended. Halfway through the meal, the twins began quizzing Wesley. "Do you know how to braid hair?" Zyla asked. Wesley blinked. I've never braided anything," Zyla gasped. "Not even bread?" Wesley tried not to laugh. "No, you gotta practice," she said matter-of-factly. Veronica leaned her cheek into her palm, amused. "She means her hair, not bread." "Oh," he said, flustered. "Right." Zayden jumped in. "Can you fix toys? 'Cause my robot is broken." "I can learn," Wesley replied. "Good," Zayden said. "Mommy too busy sometimes?" Veronica shot him a look. Thank you for announcing that to the world, but she felt something warm under her ribs, because the kids weren't being cautious with him anymore. They were inviting him in, and he accepted every invitation with a sincerity that made her chest ache. After dinner, they all moved to the living room. Toys covered the rug like a battlefield. The twins pulled Wesley down onto the floor. "Build with us. Make a house. No, a car." Wesley looked at Veronica helplessly. "Do houses have wheels?" "No," she said, smirking. "Cars do. Ah, yes, that makes sense." He let the kids climb over him as he tried to follow their directions. Veronica sat on the couch, observing quietly. She didn't feel the need to micromanage. Not right now. What she saw was something she never expected to witness in her lifetime. Her children bonding with their father naturally, peacefully, joyfully, like a missing piece of their lives had finally slid into place. Wesley laughed as Zayden shoved a block tower into his hands. Build it bigger. I'm trying, Wesley said, concentrating hard. This architect is underpaid. Zyla crawled into his lap suddenly. You comfy? Thank you, he replied, steadying her with gentle hands. Veronica felt her breath catch. That moment, soft, simple, pure, hit her in a place she didn't realize was still tender. She stood abruptly, needing a second to steady herself. Who wants fruit? Me, the twins yelled. Wesley glanced at her, noticing something shift behind her eyes. He didn't ask. He simply watched her with careful warmth. When she returned with a bowl of sliced apples and oranges, they resumed the small family evening that neither of them dared to name yet. After the twins' bath, bedtime brought its own comedy. Wesley attempted Zyla's hair routine, carefully following each instruction Veronica gave him. No, you too rough. Use the oil first. Start at the ends, not the top. Wesley, she got a tender head. Be gentle. He apologized every few seconds. Zyla rolled her eyes dramatically. Veronica tried not to laugh out loud. With Zayden, Wesley read a short book in a monotone voice until the boy fell asleep halfway through the third page. When the twins were finally tucked in, the house grew quiet. Soft quiet, not heavy quiet. Veronica walked to the porch to breathe in the night air. She didn't need solitude. She just needed space to think. Wesley stepped outside a moment later, hands in his pockets, the streetlight soft behind him. They're remarkable, he said, voice low. They're wild, she corrected. And remarkable, he insisted gently. His eyes held something she couldn't ignore, gratitude wrapped in awe. Veronica, he said, exhaling slowly. Being here, being with them, it feels like I'm finally living instead of just existing. Her heart thumped once, hard. He continued, voice deeper, truthful. And being around you, seeing the woman you are, I don't think I even understood what I lost until now. Her breath caught. Wesley, she warned softly. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just needed to say the truth out loud. The air settled between them, a gentle pause filled with everything they weren't ready to confront. She looked away, her voice barely above a whisper. Just keep showing up. That's all I need from you. I will, he said, every day, and she believed him. Not because she wanted to, but because, for the first time, he wasn't saying it like a promise, he was saying it like a commitment. Night settled gently over the 9th Ward, draping the houses, porches, and street corners beneath a calm sky that felt kinder than usual. Inside Veronica's home, the twins were finally asleep, their soft breathing drifting through the hallway like tiny reminders that life could still be sweet. Veronica stepped into the kitchen to wipe the counter, but her hands slowed, her mind slipping back to the moment on the porch just minutes earlier. Wesley standing there beneath the streetlight, speaking truths he had never dared to speak before. Words she wasn't prepared to hear. Words she didn't trust yet. She tried to ignore the flutter sitting beneath her ribs, the one she didn't give permission to exist. But it stayed there quietly, nudging her, refusing to leave her alone. She took a slow breath, grounding herself. Then she heard it, footsteps just outside. A knock followed, not loud, not urgent, just hopeful. Veronica wiped her palms on her shorts and walked to the door. Wesley stood there again, hands in his pockets, unsure whether he should even be here. Sorry, he said quickly. I didn't want to leave without making sure you were okay. You stepped away kind of fast. She leaned against the door frame. I'm fine. He gave her a look that gently challenged her. Are you? She didn't answer. Because answering meant opening a door she wasn't sure she could close again. Wesley, she finally said, keeping her tone steady. It's been a long night. I know, he replied softly. And I'll go. I'm not trying to crowd you. I just wanted to check in. Veronica breathed out slowly, then nodded toward the porch. All right, come sit for a minute. He followed her outside. They sat on opposite ends of the porch swing, not too close, not too far. The wooden seat creaked beneath their weight, swaying gently. For a few seconds, neither spoke. The night hummed with distant sounds. Cars rolling by, frogs calling from somewhere unseen, a late dog barking. Finally, Wesley whispered, Thank you for today. She tilted her head slightly. Why are you thanking me? For letting me be part of their world, he answered. For helping me learn them. For letting me try. You didn't have to do that. No, she said quietly. I didn't. But you did anyway, he murmured, eyes soft. And I see that. I see the strength it takes. Her jaw tightened, not in anger, but in an emotion she didn't know how to place. She turned away, staring out at the street. You missed everything, Wesley. Everything. Their first steps, their first words, their first birthday, even their favorite colors. He lowered his head, shame washing across his face. I know, and you can't get that time back. I know, he repeated, voice breaking slightly. And I'm not saying that to punish you, she added gently. I'm saying it because it's real. Wesley swallowed, his throat working hard. He whispered, every night since I saw them, I replay it all, what I walked away from, what I let myself believe, what I destroyed without even giving you a chance to speak. She looked at him sharply. Why didn't you listen to me, Wesley? Why didn't you trust me? Why did you pick the worst version of me to believe? He didn't hesitate, because he'd been waiting to answer this. I was scared. She blinked, surprised. Wesley continued, voice steady but raw. I was falling in love with you, faster than I ever expected, deeper than I thought I was capable of. And when I saw those messages, those pictures, it confirmed a fear I didn't even know I had. What fear? She asked quietly. That I wasn't enough for you. Her chest tightened. He breathed out slowly. You were vibrant and warm and full of life. You fit into your world effortlessly. And mine? My world was cold, structured, alone. I thought you'd realize that you deserved better than a man who barely knew how to feel. So when I saw something that hurt, I didn't question it. I told myself it was easier to walk away than risk being wrong. Veronica sat silently, absorbing the confession. Wesley's voice dropped. But I was wrong. I was completely wrong. And I hurt you because of it. She looked down at her hands. You didn't just hurt me, Wesley. You broke something in me. He shut his eyes. And you didn't even let me defend myself, she continued. You just disappeared. He nodded slowly, painfully. I know. And that decision haunts me every day. Veronica finally asked, so why now? Why come back? He looked straight at her. No walls, no pride, nothing left to hide behind. Because seeing the truth in your eyes broke me open, he whispered. And seeing my children broke me even more. I didn't just lose you. I lost them, and I didn't even know what I was losing. Her breath caught, not because he said it perfectly, but because he finally said it honestly. And now, she asked, voice trembling, slightly. Now I want to do better, he answered. I want to be better. Not to erase what happened, but to make sure I never repeat it. Silence held them again. Not a painful silence, a truth-filled one. Veronica stared at the sky. You say all the right things now. They're not lines, he said firmly. They're what's finally true. She looked at him again, and this time, this small fleeting moment, her guard slipped. Just a crack. Just enough for him to see what she'd been hiding. Her heart wasn't immune. It never had been. Not to him. Not fully. But she also wasn't reckless. Wesley, she began softly. I don't know where this leads. I don't know what I feel yet, or what I'm ready for. That's okay, he whispered, leaning forward slightly. I don't need an answer right now. All I need is the chance to keep showing up, to keep proving that I'm not leaving again. Her eyes glistened, not from pain, but from something quieter. Cautious, trembling hope. She inhaled deeply, then nodded once. Okay, she whispered. Show me. Wesley's breath shook, not with fear, but with relief so deep he couldn't hide it. I will, he said, every day. She didn't pull away when he looked at her. She didn't step back inside. She didn't shut the door between them. Her heart wasn't healed. Her trust wasn't rebuilt, but it had cracked open, just enough for possibility to slip through, enough for a new chapter to begin. Morning sunlight slid through the blinds and spilled across Veronica's living room, casting a warm glow over toys scattered everywhere. Tiny cars, plastic blocks, a stuffed bunny lying face down like it had survived a battle. It was the kind of scene that used to overwhelm her, a reminder that motherhood allowed no breaks. But today, something in the house felt different, lighter, steadier, balanced in a way she hadn't expected, because this morning, like the 14 before it, Wesley showed up again. Same gentle knock, same soft breath on the other side of the door, same quiet commitment. Mommy, he's here, Zayden shouted, flying across the room like an excited comet. Zyla, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, perked up instantly. Open it! Open it! Veronica narrowed her eyes playfully at them. You know, y'all greet him like he's the ice cream truck. The twins didn't deny it. They just squealed and jumped. She shook her head, trying not to smile as she opened the door. Wesley stood there, casual yet careful, holding a small paper bag in one hand, the diaper bag over his shoulder, and a look on his face that said he was grateful just to be standing on her porch. Good morning, he said, offering the bag. I brought beignets. Miss Althea supervised again. From across the street, Miss Althea yelled, You welcome, baby. Veronica pinched the bridge of her nose. You gave her another reason to feel important. She told me if I don't listen to her, I'll lose all my blessings. That sounds like her, Veronica said, laughing quietly. The twins stretched their arms up at Wesley. Carry us. No, carry me first. No, me. He knelt down, immediately adjusting. Okay, one at a time. I only have 2 arms, you know. Zyla latched onto his left arm, Zayden onto the right, and they each insisted they were lighter. Veronica folded her arms, watching them with a warmth she couldn't deny anymore. 2 weeks ago, the twins didn't know him. Now they clung to him like he'd always been here. She told herself not to overthink that, not to read too much into it. But the truth was gently settling inside her, and whether she wanted to or not, Veronica noticed those things. The morning routine unfolded almost effortlessly. Wesley poured cereal without spilling milk everywhere this time. He tied Zayden's shoes with only one redo. He fixed Zyla's ponytail. Not perfect, but close enough that she approved with a nod. Good job, she told him proudly. Veronica nearly choked on her coffee. As they prepared to head out for their usual stroll to the playground, Wesley asked softly, "Mind if we stop by the bookstore after? I want to pick up some new bedtime stories for them." The request surprised her, not because of what he asked, but because of how he asked. Not demanding, not assuming, just asking, respectfully. She nodded. "Yeah, that's fine." And something warm fluttered in his expression, like her approval meant more than he wanted to admit out loud. The 4 of them stepped outside, sunlight greeting them like an old friend. The twins swung between their hands, giggling as their feet lifted off the ground. 1, 2, 3, swing me, Zayden yelled. Wesley lifted both kids effortlessly, and they shrieked with delight as Veronica tried not to laugh. "You're gonna pull something," she warned. He smiled at her, a soft curve of his lips she hadn't seen since before everything shattered between them. "It's worth it." Her chest tightened, unexpected, uninvited. She looked away quickly. At the playground, things unfolded naturally. Zayden climbed everything he wasn't supposed to climb. Wesley followed both like a dedicated bodyguard who refused to fail. Veronica sat on a bench, coffee in hand, watching him chase Zayden around the monkey bars. "You're gonna fall," Wesley warned. "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." Zayden lost his footing, just slightly, and Wesley caught him instantly. "Told you," Wesley said softly. Zayden muttered, "Okay, fine, but don't tell Mommy." Wesley laughed under his breath. "Your secret is safe." Veronica watched the way he handled everything, gentle, patient, adapting each day. She had expected him to struggle, to complain, to feel overwhelmed, but he didn't. He wanted to learn. He wanted to be here. He wanted to be present. Zyla slid down the big slide and ran to him, patting his leg. "Watch me again. Watch again, again, again." "I'm watching," he said, kneeling so he was eye level with her. Something in that gesture, lowering himself to meet her where she was, hit Veronica in a place she didn't expect. It was small, but meaningful. After a while, Wesley joined Veronica on the bench. He kept his hands clasped loosely between his knees, looking out at the twins with a peaceful expression. "They're amazing," he murmured. "They're exhausting," Veronica corrected. "Both can be true," he said with a small smile. She chuckled, shaking her head. A quiet moment passed. Wesley glanced at her. "You okay?" She hesitated. "Yeah, just thinking about you," she admitted before she could stop herself. He blinked, startled, but he didn't say anything, didn't interrupt, didn't push. She appreciated that more than he knew. "I see you trying," she said softly. "And I see the effort. I see how much you're changing, and it's a lot to take in." He nodded slowly. "I understand, but it doesn't undo the past," she continued. "I know," he whispered, "and I don't expect it to." Her shoulders dropped, tension fading just a bit. "Good." He looked at her with gentle honesty. "But I hope it builds a better future." Her breath caught, but she said nothing, because she wasn't ready to answer that, but she wasn't ready to shut it down either. Later that afternoon, they walked home from the playground. Zayden held Veronica's hand, Zyla perched on Wesley's hip. "Wesley," Zyla asked suddenly, "are you going to stay every day?" The question froze all 4 of them mid-step. Veronica's pulse stumbled. Wesley held Zyla tighter, voice steady. "I'll be here as long as your mommy says it's okay." Zyla turned to Veronica. "Mommy, is it okay?" Veronica inhaled slowly. This was the kind of question that reached deep, past logic, past pride, past old wounds, and struck the most vulnerable place inside her. She looked at her daughter, then at Wesley, then back to her daughter. "Yes," she said softly. "It's okay." Zayden raised both arms triumphantly. "Yay, family time forever." Veronica nearly tripped. "Baby, stop yelling like that." But when she looked at Wesley, she found something glowing in his expression. and something she wasn't ready to name. Her heart didn't leap. It didn't race. It didn't panic. It just opened, the smallest crack, enough to let the possibility of a future drift inside. Not a promise, not a guarantee, just possibility. And that, for the first time in 3 long years, felt like the beginning of something real, something new, something earned, something steady, a new kind of beginning. Evening returned to the 9th ward as softly as a slow song humming in the background. Steady, warm, familiar. Veronica stood at the stove finishing dinner, while the twins argued in the living room about whose stuffed animal could jump higher. Their noisy back and forth filled the house with the kind of chaos she had grown to accept as normal. But today, something in the air felt different. Wesley was coming over for dinner again. Not to impress her, not to perform, just to be present. He'd been doing that for weeks now, showing up in small, consistent ways that slowly, quietly rewrote who he was in her mind. Veronica stirred the pot, trying not to think too deeply about it. She needed space to think, to feel without feeling too much. But her heart had always been stubborn. A knock tapped softly at the door. "He's here," Zayden screamed. Zyla clapped her hands. "Dinner time, family dinner time." Veronica's pulse skipped. She grabbed a towel, wiped her hands, and walked to the door. When she opened it, Wesley stood there holding a bag of groceries and wearing a shy smile. "Thought I'd bring dessert. I didn't make it, don't worry." Miss Althea supervised again. From across the street, Miss Althea shouted, and he followed every step. Veronica groaned. "I swear she lives outside. Only when I'm cooking," Wesley joked, stepping inside. The twins crashed into his legs, hugging him like he'd been gone for days instead of hours. He leaned down, embracing them without hesitation. Veronica watched with cautious admiration. He'd gone from stiff, nervous stranger to someone who moved with ease in her home. Someone who understood how to balance his presence without overwhelming the space. Someone becoming real. As Veronica finished plating dinner, Wesley stepped beside her at the counter. "Need help?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, handing him a spoon. "Stir that gently, and don't splash it." He nodded seriously, as if stirring dinner were a high-stakes operation. She smirked to herself. Dinner unfolded with laughter, tiny spills, and Zayden explaining every detail of his day despite nobody asking. When the twins announced they were too full to move, Veronica sent them to wash their hands. As soon as little feet pattered down the hall, the house fell into a quiet that felt intentional. Wesley glanced at her, voice steady but vulnerable. "Can we talk? Just us?" Veronica set down her fork. "We are talking, I mean really talk," he clarified gently. "Not about the kids, not about routines, about us." A flutter rose in her chest. She leaned back slightly. "Okay, go on." Wesley inhaled, gathering courage. Not the kind needed for business meetings or negotiations, but the tender kind required to speak from the heart. "Veronica, these past weeks have changed me. I didn't know how much until I saw the twins run to me today, until I saw how natural it felt to stand in your kitchen, until I heard you say it was okay for me to stay." She looked away, unsure whether to brace herself or let herself soften. He continued, voice dropping into something fragile. "I know I can't erase what happened. I know trust isn't built overnight, but I want you to know something clearly. I'm not showing up out of guilt. I'm showing up because I care. About them, about you, about the life we could build from this point, slowly, respectfully." Her heartbeat faltered. "Wesley." He reached across the table, not to grab her hand, not to push, simply placing his hand midway as a silent offering. "I'm asking," he said quietly, "if you're open to trying again. Not rushing, not pretending nothing happened, just trying." The words lingered like warmth on her skin. Trying again. 2 words that carried years of pain, years of healing, and years of possibility. Veronica swallowed, unsure how to shape her answer. "Wesley, everything you're doing now is good. It's real. But trying again isn't something I can say yes to easily." "I know," he whispered. "And I'm scared," she admitted. That truth slipped out before she could stop it. Wesley looked at her with the kind of understanding he didn't have years ago. "You don't have to hide that. Your fear makes sense." Her eyes stunned him for a moment. Dark, soft, uncertain, but honest. He leaned back in his chair slightly. "I'm not asking for a relationship tomorrow. I'm asking if we can explore what it means to reconnect, what it means to build something new, something steady, something earned." She sat quietly, absorbing his sincerity. She whispered, "What if I get hurt again?" His voice didn't tremble. It anchored itself. "Then I'll spend every day proving I won't put you in that place again." Their eyes locked, something tender passing between them. A gentle, warm moment stretched out. Not intense, not overwhelming, just enough to stir the air around them. Then Zyla burst into the room wearing only half her pajamas, I washed my hands, but now I cold. Veronica laughed, the spell breaking. Go get your shirt back on. Zayden ran in after her with bubbles on his elbows. I washed too, but I did it too much. Wesley chuckled, reaching for a towel. Come here, buddy. He wiped the bubbles away with practiced ease, and something inside Veronica's chest unfolded, slow, cautious, hopeful. When the kids ran back out, Veronica exhaled softly. Wesley, yes. He blinked, yes. Yes, she repeated, heart beating louder than she wanted it to. We can try. Slowly, carefully, on my terms. But yes, I'm open. Emotion flickered through Wesley's eyes, relief, gratitude, and something close to wonder. He didn't celebrate. He didn't rush to touch her. He just nodded, deeply, reverently. Thank you, he whispered. She smiled, small but sincere. And Wesley, yes, this doesn't mean we're back together. I know, it means you get the chance to earn every step. I want that, he said. This time, she believed him. As she stood to clean the table, he moved beside her, closer than before, but still respectful. Their arms brushed lightly. A quiet, warm spark moved up her skin. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't forced. It was simple. The kind of moment that hinted at something new blooming. Not rushed, not assumed, but gently rising in the spaces between them. And when she looked up at him briefly, his gaze met hers with the same softness. Nothing was said. Nothing needed to be. It was an unspoken promise. Slow, gentle, intentional, real. Before we continue, if you're still with me in this journey, go ahead and hit that like button and drop a comment. Your support helps keep stories like this alive on the channel, and it tells YouTube to share this video with more people who love meaningful storytelling. The sun lifted slow and golden over the 9th Ward on the morning of the twins' 4th. Outdoor cooking and last-minute holiday planning had been transformed. Strings of simple lights, pastel balloons, fold-out tables with homemade cupcakes, and half the neighborhood mingling around talking about how fast kids grow. But the real reason her chest kept tugging wasn't the noise or the decorations. It was Wesley. He'd been there since sunrise, taking direction from Miss Althea, hauling chairs, inflating balloons the twins kept popping on purpose, and helping Veronica's mother set up the food table. He wasn't showy, wasn't trying to impress, just working steadily as if he'd belonged here all along. And every once in a while, when he thought she wasn't watching, he looked toward the porch where she stood. Not with expectation, with gratitude, a quiet kind of hope. Veronica stepped down, brushing invisible lint from her jeans and letting her heartbeat settle. Today was for the twins. Today was for memories. Today was the closest she'd felt to peace in years. When she approached the yard, Zyla spotted her first. Mommy, today I'm a big girl. Her daughter barreled into her legs, nearly knocking one of the gift bags out of her hands. Zayden followed, shouting, I'm older too, like, really older. People laughed, clapping and cheering for the twins. Somewhere near the drinks table, Wesley turned at the sound of their voices. His expression softened, the kind of soft that came from something deeper than affection. He walked over slowly, giving Veronica space, giving the twins priority. Hey, birthday squad, he said, kneeling to their height. Ready for your surprise? The twins gasped loudly in unison, dramatic, theatrical, pure chaos. What surprise? Zyla demanded. What is it? Is it big? Is it loud? Does it move? Zayden asked in rapid-fire excitement. Wesley grinned and whispered just loud enough for everyone to hear, It moves. Both kids froze with wide eyes. IT moves? They yelled together, darting toward the yard gate as if the surprise might run away. Laughter rippled across the yard. Veronica shook her head. You didn't have to do all this. I know, he said gently, rising to stand beside her. But I wanted to. For them. For you. His tone wasn't heavy, not pleading or emotional, just real. She nodded once. They're happy. That's what matters today. And you? He asked quietly. Veronica exhaled. I'm good. Today feels good. Wesley didn't respond with words. He just let that moment sit untouched. A wave of neighbors arrived with more cousins than Veronica remembered having. Music drifted out from a portable speaker, something upbeat that had the aunties moving their shoulders before anyone else joined in. Auntie Lenora waddled over with her famous potato salad and squinted at Wesley, as if trying to read a long-forgotten book. So you're the one who caused this girl all that heartache, she said. Veronica almost dropped her plate. Wesley blinked. Yes, ma'am. I did. And now you're trying to fix it? Yes, ma'am, I am. Lenora stared another second, then patted his arm. Well, don't mess it up again. We don't have time to be comforting this child every month. I won't, he promised. Veronica choked on a laugh. Auntie, what? I said what I said. She walked away, leaving the two of them standing there with the same stunned expression before bursting into shared laughter. It was small. It was natural. It was the first time their laughter had blended without tension in years. When it was time for cake, the twins stood on a bench while everyone sang. Zayden sang the loudest, drowning out his own song, while Zyla clapped early, late, and completely off rhythm. Wesley stood behind them, one hand lightly at Zyla's back to keep her steady, the other steadying Zayden's wobbly leg. Veronica watched from across the table. Something inside her unlocked slowly, like a door she had kept jammed shut finally letting in air. Seeing the three of them together didn't hurt the way it used to. It didn't stir anger or sorrow. It stirred possibility. After the candles were blown out, with Zayden nearly setting his shirt on fire, the twins raced off to open gifts. People drifted around the yard chatting, eating, laughing. Wesley approached Veronica once the crowd thinned, his hands tucked gently in his pockets. "Can we talk for a second?" he asked. She nodded. He led her toward the side of the house where the noise softened. He wasn't nervous, just thoughtful. "I wanted to tell you something," he began. "I know these last weeks have been about rebuilding trust, and I know I can't ask for anything more than the chance you've already given." Veronica's breath held. Wesley continued softly, "But standing here today, watching you with our kids, being part of their birthday, it reminded me how much I lost when I walked away, and how much I hope to earn now." He looked down briefly, choosing his words carefully. "I don't want to assume a future with you. That's the mistake I made before, thinking things belonged to me without doing the work. So instead, I want to ask." He lifted his eyes to hers. "Veronica, can I earn a future? Not demand one, not rush one, just earn it, day by day, moment by moment, at your pace." Her throat tightened. Not from pain, from hope, the kind she'd tried so hard to resist. She stepped closer, not touching him, but closer. "You're doing the work, Wesley. I see it, and I feel it. But the future, that's something we build slowly." "I can do slow," he said, "as long as I get to show up." She smiled, the kind that didn't hide. "Then keep showing up, and we'll see where that leads." His relief was visible, not dramatic, just softening the lines of his shoulders. Behind them, the twins yelled across the yard, "Daddy! Mommy, come see! Come see!" Veronica blinked at the word, "Daddy!" Veronica looked at him. "Go on," she said. He did, and as she followed a moment later, she realized something. This was the full circle moment, not a perfect ending, not a guaranteed future, but a new beginning built with honesty, accountability, and care. Exactly the kind of story she once thought she'd never get. Would you have forgiven Wesley? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and remind us that growth is always possible.